Hello again. Now, most people nowadays have a Spotify playlist. I don't. I don't really understand it. In any case, I don't really listen to music that much. But that's not always been the case. When I was a kid, I was a member of the bargain basement Von Trapp family. Me and my whole family were great at busting out songs together. Usually on our long, boring trips from London to Wales or Devon, where our grandparents lived. I'm talking pre-motorways here, the 1950s, and also pre-us having a radio in the car. So after we'd exhausted I Spy with my little eye, and I packed my bag and in it I put something beginning with, what else were we going to do but sing? I still know all the lyrics to Tommy Steele's Handful of Songs. Well, I've got a handful of songs to sing you. Can't stop my voice when it longs to sing you. That wasn't my favourite, though. His other hit of the time was, once upon a time there was a little white bull, very sad because he was a little white bull. We had a full repertoire, us. Max Bygraves, I'm a pink toothbrush, you're a blue toothbrush, and you need hands, da-da-da-da-da. I could go on, but believe me, we could go on for hours in the car and often did. We had to, as on most of these journeys we would have punctures and sometimes not just one. I recall one journey when we had 4. We once had one in the middle of the then crossing point of the River Severn. The bridge we use now wasn't opened until 1966, so back in those days you had to go via Gloucester. For some reason it seemed to take us longer than most to reach Gloucester, as Dad had a habit of getting lost in Chipping Norton. Dad, I think we've been past here 3 times now. I got to know Chipping Norton like the back of my hand. Anyway, there we were, a family of 7, sitting in a broken-down car in the middle of a small bridge, waiting for Dad's return with a mechanic. I'm not sure why. I think it must have been one of our birthdays, as we all had little hats on and those blower things that unravel and make a noise. It didn't go down with the ever-lengthening queue of traffic behind us, but it seemed to entertain the people passing, who kept poking their heads through the window and commenting on the fun we were having. But apart from the singing, those journeys really weren't much fun. They were never planned either. We'd be having our tea on a Friday night and Dad would suddenly say, "Shall we go to Wales?" Or "Shall we go to Devon?" And without further ado, we'd set off scrambling around the house, gathering up spare knickers and socks and, if it was Devon, our swimming costumes. And then we'd shove them all willy-nilly into the boot of the car. No one in the family had such a thing as a suitcase. I think there was only one in the house, and that was a D-Mob one. It was small, utilitarian, and battered. It was my job to go and get the poufee, as that was my seat. I had to place it on the floor in the back. So I would sit for hours with the door handles in my back and not be able to see out of the windows. No wonder I got travel sick. Years later, Dad told us that on one particular journey, he'd had trouble with the car and whatever he'd done to repair it resulted in exhaust fumes coming in through the air vents. Well, that finally explained 2 things. Why I felt so sick and why he'd insisted on driving all that journey in the middle of winter with the windows open. Within half an hour, we'd usually be on the road. If the destination was Wales, we'd usually arrive about midnight, punctures permitting. So picture this. There's my grandparents, just the 2 of them, in bed, fast asleep, blissfully unaware of what was approaching. There were no telephones to pre-warn them back then, so they're in the dark. The first they would know would be when they would be woken up with Dad shouting, "Ouch!" as he once again banged his 6'4" head on their 6-foot doorway. So 1 minute there's just the two of them, and the next there's 10 of us in total. 10 who need a bed and feeding for 2 days and nights. It was soon sorted though. Their place was a tiny 2 up, 2 down and an outside lav. It was a miner's cottage. And what was the tradition at that time, one of the downstairs rooms was never used as it was designated for best. And we obviously didn't fit that description as we never got to use it. But that didn't matter because my mother's sister lived close by, halfway up the mountain. So Mum, Dad and my 2 younger brothers would use her parents' spare bedroom, and us 4 girls would be dropped off at my aunt and uncle's place. Remember now, this is about 1 a.m, after we'd all been greeted and inspected by our grandparents, who'd given the obligatory observation on how tall we were all getting. Remember also that they had no access to a phone either, so they would be sleeping 1 minute, and the next minute they'd be tucking us 4 girls up with their 2 girls. We slept in 2 beds, top and tail. Not very comfortable, but great fun. If I had a large group like that descend on me for the weekend now, I'd have been shopping and stacked the pantry. But again, it didn't seem to matter. My uncle would come to ask us what we wanted for breakfast, dressed as a waiter with a clean cloth over his arm and his paper and pencil ready to take our orders. You could order whatever you wanted, more or less. Didn't make any difference, as that item would always be declared off that day, and the only item left that wasn't off was beans. So beans on toast it was. Food wasn't an issue on my grandparents' house either, and that was only a footstep away from the chippy. So it was chips with everything. And seeing as Dad was paying, they could treat themselves to bacon and chops from the butcher's, which were cooked in the usual way over an open fire. I don't know why, but somehow meat cooked in this way always tasted the best. You were stuffed into a car without enough seats. You sat on a poufee. There were punctures. Your grandparents had no warning. Nobody had enough beds. 4 girls slept top and tail. Breakfast was beans, because apparently every other item in Wales had been taken mysteriously off. And the grandparents' best room remained inviolate, while 10 human beings attempted to occupy the rest of the cottage. I loved those visits. Time to catch up with cousins and much-loved relatives. When my uncle passed away years later, in his eulogy, it was mentioned that it was hoped God had got enough baked beans in ready for his arrival. So on Sunday late afternoon, we'd say our goodbyes and off we'd go again, singing our way through our Spotify list. Nellie the elephant packed her trunk and said goodbye to the circus. Honestly, the Von Trapps had nothing on us. I hope you enjoyed that journey to Wales and the singing. Maybe not. Thanks for staying with me till the journey's end. Pop those boots back now in their place. And until the next time, happy rambling.